Hey, friends, welcome back to the Point of a Books podcast. My name is LaShawn and I am your host. And friends, I survived a summer sickness. I cannot call it a cold. I can't call it a flu. And it wasn't COVID. It was some feral rude virus that had all three of them put together that took me out for an entire week, which is why you did not hear from me last week. The only good thing about it was that I was confined to bed and in between sleeping, watching really old episodes of Criminal Minds. I restarted that whole series. It's been on since 2005. And reheating Heated Robbery, I read 4 books. I'll talk about a couple of them today, but let's just say it was a good start to my summer reading season. I was pleased with most of my selections, which brings us to today's topic. As of this recording, I've read 66 books this year. I don't know if that puts me on track for the same amount or more than I read last year. And frankly, I stopped caring a long time ago. I really only keep track for statistical purposes. I'm not trying to beat any records or anything like that. I read and I really don't keep track until I look on here for you guys. But anyway, what I do know about my reading life this year is that it has felt slower. I haven't read as many short books or Kindle Unlimited books or books that don't require much of my brain this year as I usually do. Like there's no last year, especially towards the end, there was a lot of how do you say disassociation. So I read quite a few mindless books. This year, I've been much more intentional about branching out to books that I normally wouldn't read and picking a few authors that are new to me. But most of the books I've read with about a month of exception of a month, like January was really a fluff month for me, were pretty good. We're pretty good this year. I've read 5 Toni Morrison books through the Portable Books Book Club and a lot of romance, of course. But in between, I discovered, like I said, a lot of new to me authors. And it feels like I've spent all year waiting for my favorites to publish a book or finishing new to me authors or waiting on sequels. That's what I feel like this year is for me so far. So with that in mind, I looked and out of those 66 books, only 5 have a 5-star rating and 5 more have a 4.5 rating. My average rating seems to be 3.8. I have a lot of 4 stars, a lot of 4 stars this year and a lot of 3.5s, but not a lot of just plain, and then like an average number of 3s. Remember for me, 3 means that it was just good. It was a good read. I enjoyed it. I probably won't read it again, but I enjoyed it for what it was while I was reading it. 3.5 is like a little elevated. Like I enjoyed it for what it was, but I was like, I might pick that up again. Four means I loved it. It was great. I will probably read it again. I enjoyed it. I had a good time. 5, it was great. It was awesome. I will definitely probably buy it and put it on my bookshelf. Okay. So anyway, I thought 10 was a great number to talk about my best books of the year so far list. I am listing them out in the order that I've read them, so keep that in mind. I didn't put them in any specific, this one is the best or anything like that. So let's get started, friends. The first book is Tender is the Flesh by Agustina Bazterrica. I gave that a 4.5. Our story follows Marcos, who works in the industry as he secretly shelters a woman meant for slaughter. Like, remember, this was the book where they were eating people. Cannibalism had been legalized, and people were the special meat. Humans were the special meat, and they were breeding humans to feed. Anyway, so keep that in mind when I say that he is secretly sheltering a woman meant for slaughter. This book was disturbing. It was kind of disgusting. Every page I had to stop and stop several times. I won't give away what happens, especially at the end, except to point out that this book is a study on what happens when society loses its humanity and is left with, I guess you can say, resignation. It's a commentary on how words matter. In this world, cannibalism is a banned word. Human meat becomes special meat. The book is also a commentary on how language is used to make humans feel better about themselves and the atrocities that they do commit. You basically they dehumanize humans so that they can eat them because it's real easy to dehumanize somebody when you take away humanity. But it was like the deepest book I've read this year so far. but also the most disgusting. And I gave it a 4.5 out of 5. Like I said, I was horrified the entire time I was reading it. And the last line alone will stick with me for a long time. I'm not going to tell you to read this one or that I recommend it, but I want you to know it's out there. And it's interesting if you do take a chance on it. It is. This is also the book that sent me into my first reading slump of the year. The next book that I read that got a 4.5 was Direbound by Sable Sorensen. I came on this one like by accident. It was a Libro FM offering arc from Libro. It was an advanced reader copy from Libro FM. So I listened to it and it was actually very, very good. I don't know if it's because there wasn't it's a romantasy book. So there wasn't a fae in sight and the vampire didn't appear until near the end. But I was so intrigued by this. I was so intrigued. Basically, you have the main character. She's trying to get her sister back. Her sister has been kidnapped by the vampires and she's trying to get her sister back. So she has to join the army because she knows that the vampires are at the front. That's what they're fighting. So she joins, and then to get there, she ends up in this competition where you get bound to these wolves. She did not intend to get bound to the wolves, but she ended up in this competition. And so then the whole thing is her navigating that, finding out that the love of her life is somebody different than she thought he was, dealing with the politics. It's sort of like wolves meet academia. I loved it. I hated her love interest with every fiber of my being and was pleased as punch with how that turned out in the end. There was a cliffhanger plot twist at the end that had me gasping in shock, and I love that for me. And it made me like the book even more. So it was like almost perfect in what I love about romantasy, because I read so many of these books these days, not this year so much because I'm literally burnt out of romantasy books all sounding the same, all having basically the same plot. This one was so different. And a lot of books these days are written from the trope perspective rather than the story perspective. And I can predict a lot of plot points. But with this one, even though there were some parts of it that were obvious to me, they were predictable, that were plot heavy because I read a lot of books, the author still managed to make it interesting to me and surprising. And that is exactly what I'm looking for these days. And when I look back at these books that I really loved this year, that is what I got. Surprise me, intrigue me, make me fall in love with the vibes and the bad guy. Really. It was really good. So like I said, I gave it a 4.5 stars, mainly on vibes and because it had a interesting magical system. The next book that I read was You and Me by Tal Bauer, and it got a 4.5 out of 5. Tal Bauer is a new to me author. I saw a rec on Threads that said that if you like heated rivalry, to read this. His books are not as spicy, we will say, as the Game Changer series, but they are so damn sweet, like cinnamon roll sweet with yearning and spicy times, and that is my favorite type of romance. I was drawn in and I read maybe 4 of his books, but You and Me was my favorite. This story follows Luke, a widowed dad in Lost Waters, Texas, struggling to reconnect with his distant teenage son a year after losing his wife. When the town's super dad, Landon Larson, recruits him to help with the high school football team, volunteering becomes the bridge back to his child. But as their friendship deepens, so does the unexpected attraction. Torn between rebuilding his bond with his son and grappling with feelings he's never had before, he risks everything for a connection he can't ignore. What starts as an attempt at healing becomes a complicated emotional awakening when he realizes he's fallen for Landon and acts on it. Like I said, this was syrupy sweet with just enough spice and a happily ever after that I want at the end of all of my romance novel. Like I said, I gave it a 4.5 out of 5, and it still remains, it's one of those that even though I only gave it a 4.5 out of 5, I think I need this one on my shelf because it just really is a feel good, sweet song, sweet story. Contrast that with my next book, which is Half His Age by Jeanette McCurdy. This is the first 5-star book on my list, I believe. The entire time I was reading this book, my skin was crawling. Waldo, our main character, is fascinating, but also selfish and insecure and immature and inappropriate and just a mess. You will not like her. You will not like her choices. You will not like how her mind works. I spent the whole book cringing and wanting to beat her ass respectfully, pardon my French. But it was really such a good book. And you know, a writer has done his job when you hate the book, but at the end, you still give it a 5. It was great. Once again, I recommend this book with caveats because some people are going to find it so disturbing. Some people's morals will make them find it so disturbing that they won't be able to read it. I live in the gray. I read everything, friends, everything. My next 5-star book was Daggermouth by H.M. Wolf. Y'all, listen, I love a good enemies to lovers book. Usually they are enemies for about 10 to 25% of the book. And then it's really just lust and sexual tension disguised as not liking each other or something like he's a work rival or a childhood enemy. But these two, they hated each other. I mean, it was 68 into the book and they were still trying to kill each other. Like literally she shot him. It was like 90% of the book before I felt like they were moving towards something. But let me tell you. So anyway, our main female character, she is like a mercenary. She kills people for a living. And her next mark is like the son of the ruler of their land. And she goes to kill him and gets caught. And she has to strike a bargain where she has to marry him. And the son is also trapped. So he has to strike a bargain to marry her too. And they are miserable because they really don't like each other. Like literally, they don't like each other. She tried to kill him for goodness sake. And it's very good. I will say now that I've sat with this book, it still gets a 5 for me. But now that I've sat with it, I can say I enjoyed the secondary romance in this book more than I enjoyed the primary romance. Which when you read the book and you get to the end, that crushes you, which is why the book still gets a 5. That's why it still gets a 5. I love you. I love it. And it was just good. It was just good. This is a duology, I do believe. And so we were supposed to originally get the second book this year, but she is now being traditionally published. And the traditionally published version of this book is coming out in July. So I think that the second book is not coming out until 2027, unfortunately. But I enjoyed this one. It was a good time. I gave it a 5. I would have given it 6 stars because I was just like, yes, yes, enemies. The next book that I gave a 5 to was Kin by Tayari Jones. I love this book from the very first chapter. This is the story of two motherless girls who grow into two motherless young women and the choices that they make because of it. Starting in Honeysuckle, Louisiana, our story then splits, alternating between Atlanta, where Bernice goes to college to find security in the family she never had, while Annie goes to Memphis to find the mother that abandoned her. This is the story of sisterhood, found family, sexuality, chosen family, race, and grief. Almost every character in this book is shaped by their mother in some way. And when I think of good writing, I think of books like this, writers like Tayari Jones. This was thought provoking, entertaining, heartbreaking, realistic, lyrical, and so many more things that I just can't put into words. I have debated the ending with various friends, and we all have different thoughts and opinions, but we all agree that we love this book. And like I said, it was one of my 5-star reads. My next 5-star read was Judge Stone. This is one of those books that James Patterson like co-writes, quote unquote, with like a star. He did this one, but with Viola Davis. Now, friends, usually you wouldn't be able to get me to touch one of these James Patterson books and whatever celebrity, like I said, he wrote with, quote unquote, with a 10-foot pole. I used to love James Patterson's early Alex Cross series books, but fell off because they started feeling rushed and like he had a ghostwriter. Like he is not writing those books anymore. But anyway, back to this one. I listened to a sample of it because Viola Davis reads the audiobook, and that is what hooked me. And if you read this book, that is the way you want to go. It was so good. Let me give you the premise. The most respected citizen in Union Springs, Alabama, population 3,314, is Judge Mary Stone. She holds two responsibilities sacred, running her family farm and presiding over her courtroom. It's there that she draws the most controversial case in the history of the South. Criminally, it's open and shut. Ethically, there's no middle ground. Essentially, it's a choice between life and death. No judge can satisfy everyone, and it would be dangerous to try. But let me tell you why you should do the audiobook. The way Viola Davis reads this, you can practically see it. It's like listening to a movie in your ears. She was Judge Stone. In fact, I need her to make that happen expeditiously. I need her just to make this a movie. This book was fast paced, a page turner, tense, all the things at the same time, and it was awesome. Okay. The next book that I gave 5 stars to was The Night We Met by Abby Jimenez. This book had like the strangest premise. There's girl meets boy, girl goes out, girl meets boy, likes boy, but goes home with his best friend. The two form a friendship because, she's supposed to go home with him, but the two form a friendship that is closer than she has with her boyfriend. And it goes from there. This was one of the most angsty, most pining, most longing, most fulfilling romance novels ever. And I loved every second of it. All my romance novels this year have been syrupy sweet. Favorite romance novels this year have been syrupy sweet, piney, yearning. I love it. And I can say that as someone who always wants open door romances, like I want to read about the sexy times. So when I say that a novel that literally was not open door and I still loved it, means she did a damn good job. I loved everything about this one. She redeemed herself because I didn't really like her. I mean, I liked her book last year, but this one was so much better. And it's maybe my number 2 book from her. Maybe. Anyway, the next book is Fury Bound, which I gave 4.5 stars. This is one of the sequels that I was looking for. Actually, it is the sequel to the first book I talked about, Dire Bound. I was rabid to get my hands on this one. So let me tell you what I loved the slow burn change from enemies to lovers. Because yes, these two also were really enemies with some sexual tension, but enemies. I loved the world building that continued in this book. I love that we got a chance to meet new characters, get to know others better, and even some that we did not expect, which I really loved. I love that we got character growth for both Marin and Stark. I love that we got Stark's point of view. And yes, his mind is just as filthy as you think it is. And so is Marin. Child, it was good times. But one of the best things about Fury Bound was the pace. I never felt like there was a lull, and I was never bored myself. There was literally something significant that is necessary to the plot happening in every chapter, and I really loved that. This story was going so well that as I hit the 75% mark, I kept asking myself, isn't this a trilogy? Because it seemed like everything was being wrapped up. So I was like, why is there a third book? It wasn't until I'll say the last 3 pages when it became crystal clear that yes, girl, you need that third book. Thankfully, it is already in progress. A date has already been noted. So while there is not a big cliffhanger in a way, kind of sort of like the first book, it does leave you confused and concerned and a little scared. And even if you only know vaguely why, my only pet peeve with this book, like that's my main pet peeve. It was really good. I'm going to wrap this up by saying I'm glad that this book didn't have middle child syndrome. It moved just like the first one, adding more to the story than dropping us off the cliff and leaving us ready and feral for the next book. Because without giving spoilers, OMG, but I am ready for more. Like I said, that one got a 4.5. And then the last book that I'm adding to my best books of the year so far list was Broken Dove, which was also a sequel that I have been waiting for. It is a dystopian romance and a sequel to Silver Elite. You know, that book that was so controversial last year because nobody knew who the author was. It's supposed to be a well-known author writing underneath a ghostwriter, not supposed to be a well-known author writing underneath a pseudonym. So no one really knows like who this author is, but the author did good. That's all I'll say. It's a dystopian romance. The author got a little controversy too because they said that it was Hunger Games with sex, which none of this. I read the second book. I can see where she was going with that. The first book, no. But anyway, this is the second book where loyalties will be tested and the fight for the continent is only beginning as Ren, our main character, finds herself caught in the middle of 2 wars. one for the fate of her home and one for the fate of her heart. Lines were crossed. So, my thoughts. All I can say about this is the cliffhanger. I read this book and was invested. It moved fast. It was fast paced. It kept me going. The love interests were good. Her discovering her powers, all the side characters, it was good. And then we got a cliffhanger. And all I can say is, oh my God. I read this in one day because I literally could not put it down. I kept wondering how everything was going to fit together. Like, who could we trust? Who could Ren trust? Kane and what happened to Cross was like my whole thing. It's like a love triangle. I'm like, ooh, Lord. But now I'm mad I have to wait for the last book. But this one was well done. Well done. So, and I do believe we'll probably get our next book next year. So I'm not really too worried about it, but it was good times. It was good times. And I enjoyed this very, very much. Okay. So those were my 10 best books of the year so far. I'm sure by the end of the year, some of these books will stay on here and some of these books will come off. I'm sure I will read more books that I will love. And if I don't have any books to surpass these, I had a good reading year. But anyway, let's talk about what's currently going on in my reading life. I am so proud of myself for moving swiftly through my July TBR. Guys, this is really working for me. And I think I'm going to have to do this forever now because it keeps me focused and I don't jump all over the place. I did DNF 2 books, and I don't know if I DNF'd them because I was sick and I just didn't have the patience, or if I DNF'd them because they were just not working for me. But I DNF'd Rich and Rotten by Jacquel L. That one, though, might be a DNF for now because, like I said, I don't know if it was because I was sick, but it wasn't holding my attention. And like I felt like it should have, because the story, I enjoyed the story. I was enjoying the storyline, but it just, I couldn't click with it. So I'm like, I don't know if that was a me thing, being sick while I was trying to read it, or not. So I put it on my DNF for now list, and I might come back to it. The other DNF was The Low Job, and let me just say I just couldn't. And that's all I'll say about that for now. I might revisit the hows and the whys of that one later, but that one will not be going. I will not be going back to that book. So yeah, that one's over. But like I said, while sick last week, I did finish The Open Era by Edward Schmidt. I'm going to admit that initially I saw the cover for this book before I knew what it's about when I was searching for books that came out in June. And that is the main reason why I clicked on the description, because the cover was beautiful. I like tennis. I really do. I like watching it, but not usually enough to read about it. Also, there are not a lot of tennis romance stories, but I digress. I kind of sort of like sports romances, even if I tend to skip over the sports part sometimes. So I thought this sounded interesting, and I was not wrong. I know that it's a romance and that guarantees our happily ever after, but I can honestly say I wasn't seeing how that could happen here at all. There were lots of obstacles, and they were not of our main male character's making. I was rooting for Austin and only Austin, and that is all. But I was so happy that it ended up how it did. It was very good. I loved it. What did I give this? I think I gave it a 4 out of 5. Yeah, I gave it a 4 out of 5. Currently, I am finally reading Into the Blue by Emma Brody. Actually, I haven't cracked open the cover, but it's next. I will take it out to my hammock, hopefully this evening, or to my couch, hopefully this evening, because it is kind of hot outside, and read a chapter or two. I am way too excited about this. Just to refresh your memory, I'll tell you what it's about. In the summer of 2000, AJ Graves dreams of writing for Saturday Night Live. Instead, she's stuck working in a video rental store with slim odds of escaping her small Massachusetts town. Then in walks Noah Drew, an enigmatic and intense scion of the Drew acting dynasty, and her life changes forever. Despite being wildly different upbringings, the two forge a deep cosmic bond, first as friends, then as acting partners, until one day, Noah disappears without a word. 7 years later, in New York City, AJ is shocked to find herself cast in the same TV production as Noah, by then a well-known Hollywood heartthrob. As their on-screen characters grow closer every day, the lines between reality and acting begin to blur. Unable to stay away from each other, AJ and Noah are forced to confront the truth of what happened years ago and the devastating secret that will send their lives careening apart, even as fate continues to draw them together. I have been waiting to read this one all summer long. We were supposed to go on a road trip last weekend, but of course the whole family got sick and I was going to take it with me then. But since I did not go on a road trip, now it is just finally time to dive into this book and I am excited. I am currently listening to an arc from Libro FM, Trope Sick by Lauren Oakey. I had no plans, guys, no plans on reading this. But I can honestly say it kept being shoved into my face, whether it was on my favorite podcast, whether it was on book lists, whether it was everywhere. And when it popped up as a Libro FM choice for ARCs this month, I finally gave in. The premise for Trope Sick is a meta romance where the tropes two writers craft begin playing out in real life. I am in love with this story. I usually hate listening to romance on audio. It kind of gives me the ick for some reason. But this dual narration, and it is every single thing. I am loving having two distinct voices, and it's like listening to a little movie in my head. I'm about 28% in, and it's almost like a commentary on the romance genre in general. Like, are we writing a romance or writing for tropes? You know what I mean? An actual love story that is actually full of tropes and inside, which is also inside a story about a story. And these two are just delightful characters, and it is like the perfect book for the walks I've started taking in the morning. It's just, I love it. It's delightful. And for my Kindle book, I am currently reading another romance called Rafe by Rebecca Witherspoon. And I don't know how I got here. I don't remember how I discovered this book. I just know that it's a nanny romance where he is the redheaded, tattooed, bearded motorcycle driving nanny, and she is the black cardiothoracic surgeon with twins, and that I am at 28% in, and it's all fluff and sexy times. This is what I will call fluffy smut, even though I hate the word smut. Nobody is rude. Nobody is mean. There's no trauma. Nobody has issues. It's just feelings and sex. And like nobody has any trauma. Nobody has anything that they need to go to therapy for. They're just two people trying to, trying to have a relationship. But they don't know that yet. With two cute kids thrown in. Like it's like Hallmark with smut. It really is. And it just moves so quickly and easily. It's like non-stressful. It's really good in a way. But I'll keep you updated anyway. Well, my friends, that is all I have for you today. Next week's episode is my last episode until August. I am officially going to be taking the summer off. There will be reruns all month long in July, and I'll be talking about my own personal summer reading TBR next week. And when I come back in August, we will talk all about what I read in the summer and what I'm looking forward to in the fall. Most likely. Maybe we shall see. Okay, friends, that's all I have for today. As always, if you enjoyed listening, I'd love it if you would follow me on Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast platform. If you have a minute, please think about leaving a review on Apple Podcasts or sharing the podcast on social media or following my channel on YouTube if you found me there. It helps us to grow and find other bookish friends like us. And if you'd like to connect with me, you can email me at pornovelbookspod@gmail.com. And you can also connect with me over on my personal IG and TikTok at LaShawn Wills. I am going to start posting more on TikTok. I figured that would be a fun summer activity, low stakes, and I can just post whatever over there. So it may be a little more unhinged over there than it is on IG, just for warning when I get to it. But anyway, thanks again for listening. Talk to you later, friend. Bye-bye.